Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another Babbling Irons match review show. West Ham losing once again at home. Shock. This time losing 2-1 to Forest at home in what was a very strange game. Me and Sloth were just talking off air that there were moments in that game where it was probably the best atmosphere we've seen at the London Stadium for a very long time, and probably this season, based on some of the events that occurred with VAR and the refereeing on display and some of the things towards the end of the game. But yeah, by and large, we're going to break down everything as we normally do for West Ham's final home game of this Premier League campaign. And thank goodness we don't have to do that again. We've got one more away game to go, and then we can look forward to the summer transfer window, which will be more exciting content for you guys, given the season that we've had so far. But if you do enjoy this review show, make sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel as well for more content. And Sloth, starting with the lineups as we normally do. Any surprises to what we saw here? I think most people probably anticipated something similar because of the win against Man United, and you don't want to change a winning team. But were you surprised that the likes of Guido Rodriguez still started despite the good performance at Old Trafford?
To be honest, I was kind of more surprised that Areola was in goal. I think even before we get to the performances, if you release that Fabianski is leaving, quite why you can't give him a proper send off in the game. It's not like we're vying for European places. This is a dead rubber, and I think that was really, really poor. And that's before we even touch on Areola's performance, which he did his usual thing of pulling an absolute worldie of a save and then doing the most idiotic thing you've seen a keeper do, and the biggest mistake that I think a football player in general can make. And yeah, I for me, that's the one that really disappoints me. Quite why he couldn't, or Potter didn't start Fabianski, because I've been a pretty harsh critic of Fabianski at times when I think he's deserved it. But for someone who's given so much to the club and, by all accounts, loves the club and wants to come back in some regard, I just think that was awful from Potter. I really don't understand what he's doing.
Yeah, I agree. I think obviously because Cresswell started, Kufal started, those players had those opportunities. I know they started at Old Trafford in the win, so maybe Potter's thinking wasn't sentiment really. It was just about the performance and getting the best from the team and not changing a winning team. But as you say, Fabianski, it was a shame because he didn't even get any minutes. And with a goalkeeper, it's slightly more difficult to get them on the pitch in those sorts of situations, especially when the game is tight like it was. But you have to, this guy's been here, 6 years at West Ham, 7 years now. He deserved to play in that game, regardless of the situation of Areola's performance at Old Trafford. And we're going to get onto obviously the mistake in a second. But just as an overview from the statistics from the game, just so we can all see what happened. West Ham around 61% possession to Forest 39. So Forest sticking with that average from what we saw in the preview. Their expected goals was higher than ours at 1.96 compared to our 1.13. We had more shots than them with 16 compared to their 10. 5 shots on target for each team. 0 big chances for West Ham. 4 for Forest. They missed 3 of them. Obviously, we had 0 there. And we had 1 more corner than them. And we had a lot more passes. But again, you can see the momentum graph on that right-hand side. It very much was, we started very strongly in those opening first few minutes. Forest then got into it. We were making stupid mistakes and looked way too open. Forest were going for the kill to try and get the lead. And they did that through our own mistake. We then tried to get back into it. Became a little bit of a lull between the midpoint. Forest get that second killer goal from a set piece after we've made some substitutions. And then we're trying to rescue the game, which is where most of the action happened for West Ham and where we saw a lot of the atmosphere build in those last 15, 20 minutes of the game. But, there isn't really much more we can go through. We could go and sit through all of the chances, Sloth, all of the different moments in the game. But I just want to get into the goal that made the difference because we'd started so strongly. Souček almost scored with a header. It was a great save from Sales in goal. And then Forest it kind of bucked them up a little bit. They kind of woke up in that moment and didn't allow us to continue playing how we were in those first opening few minutes. We looked a little bit shaky at the back, a little bit too open, and Forest looked sharp. And they looked a lot sharper than us in and out of possession. And that's how the first goal comes. And I've seen a few different things on social media of who's to blame for this opening goal. And I think we're just going to go through it very, clear as day, and use the screenshots to kind of evidence that. So firstly, again, Forest are kind of in their shape. They've pressed us back a little bit, forced us backwards. Kilman plays it to Areola. And we find ourselves now in this situation where Areola's effectively got a few options here. He can wait for Tebow to come out wide and play it to him if he doesn't get marked. He can wait for Kilman to make a move and go back across if Alanga doesn't cut off that angle. And then he's got two more options after that of trying to play to Guido or Ward-Prowse in the middle, with Gibbs-White splitting the two, or he just goes long and he just, clears the danger, doesn't do anything stupid in this situation, and West Ham reset. But the way Graham Potter wants to play, he's encouraging West Ham to do this. So do I sympathize with Areola? No, because he has to use game state as a professional. You have to be aware of when you can and can't play. We're going to see this regularly. Whoever the goalie is next season under Graham Potter, if Graham Potter is still the manager, we will continue to see this. And to be honest, we'll continue to see mistakes as we start to develop as a team and we get more familiar with the concept of Graham Potter. But if we take it forward to a frame here, this is a killer pass. Like, yes, Man City might do this with Edison, or, there might be specific teams that will try and encourage this if they've got the players to do it. We know Areola is not good with his feet. He's maybe a little bit better than Fabianski, but he's by nowhere near the levels of distribution that you would need for someone to play this sort of pass. He might have got away with it, but Gibbs-White is already, you can see, alert to the situation here when Areo's passing the ball. Both Ward-Prowse and Guido are pretty much static. I don't think they expected the pass here. Guido did call for it. So again, that's where the blame comes in, whether it's Guido or Areola's fault. I think Potter is encouraging this as well. But again, I'm not blaming Potter. That's the way he wants to play. But Areola just has to clear this ball. He has to get rid of it, because playing in this situation, yes, we've got a 4v3, but like the risk versus reward for me when I'm watching this play, but when I'm watching this play out, it's not worth the risk, because Forest have some lightning quick players, and you're passing the ball into a player who, in Guido Rodriguez, who is extremely immobile, and you've got Morgan Gibbs-White, who is extremely mobile. So again, that becomes where, as a professional, game state and game management comes into things. I'm not saying this is the wrong methodology from Graham Potter. That's how he wants to play, fine. But the players themselves have to be aware of these situations. And as we said, Gibbs-White alerts to the situation, intercepts the pass. You can see the positioning of Guido Rodriguez. He wasn't anticipating the pass. He's flat-footed. Gibbs-White is ready to pounce. And it's a nice finish from Gibbs-White as well to slot past Areola. And we find ourselves 1-0 down in 11 minutes, where, again, as we mentioned at the start stuff, we started quite promising. The atmosphere was quite good in those first few minutes, and then it just killed the vibe. It just killed that atmosphere. And yeah, who's your main grudge with that goal? Is it Areola? Is it Graham Potter for what he's trying to instill? Is it Guido Rodriguez? Who's to blame for that goal?
I think it's all three, really. All three are to blame. I don't know why we have this. Potter has seen for long enough. He's coached these players for long enough to know that Areola is not good with his feet, and that playing like this is going to have risks and consequences. Quite why he has persisted with that with Areola in goal is beyond me. I mean, people can say, "Oh yeah, but that's how he coaches. That's his style of play." If I were to walk into a football club and go, it's like Mike Bassett. It's Mike Bassett level management, in the terms of, like, if you have the players to play a system, and then you want to come in and change how they play, or you want to implement a style that doesn't suit them, you're going to have consequences to that. And I said this game was a bit of a dead rubber. It wasn't for Forest. And that's what really showed, is Guido is standing still. He does the thing that you are told at every single level of junior football, not to stay flat on your feet when you're receiving a pass. You meet the ball and you go to it, or you are at least on your toes and you're wary of who's around you. I think it's a shocking decision for him to call for the pass. It's more on Areola for playing the pass when he is looking ahead of him, and he can see.
I don't blame Guido for calling for it, because he's a midfielder trying to receive possession of the ball. Areola has to know where he is in the pitch.
He's not got the most blame. He's probably got the least blame, in my opinion. But you still should be aware of when everyone is. And we all saw Declan Rice doing his fake scanning against Newcastle, looking around and doing that. Why isn't Guido Rodriguez seeing that Morgan Gibbs-White is right there? They were pressing us all game, and you can't see that one of the most informed attacking midfielders that England has is there and has been pressing you. So I think he's probably got the least amount of blame. He still gets some blame from me because you don't call for that pass in that situation. It's too narrow, and there's anyone with eyes could see that Morgan Gibbs-White is there. So for me, it's a shocking call to make. Areola has the most blame for me because it's a daft pass to play and it's completely the wrong decision. But it's also on Potter. I think Potter and him are the two main people.
Can we blame Potter for an individual mistake, even though he's encouraging that sort of football? Because, he wouldn't have, and it's very cliche, but he wouldn't have told Areola to misplace that pass, but he's encouraging them to have the confidence to play out from the back. Of
course he wouldn't. But when you have a player who you can give someone the most confidence in the world. Me, if I had the most confidence in the world, if I went up to Dua Lipa and said, "Go out with me,"
always comes back to Dua Lipa, doesn't it?
Well, it's the best analogy I can make. You're going to give the most confidence in the world. If it, at the end of the day, if she's got bloody 6'4" boyfriend or whatever next to her, she ain't going to pick me. So what's the point? Like, what? And I realise this is someone who's in a happy relationship. I'm not saying that this is what I'm going to have. I'm just saying this
is what West Ham's done to these review shows this season. Man. What's going on?
Mad. But you cannot ask someone who is not good with their feet to play out from the back and then be surprised when you get stupid goals against you. For me, it's just daft management. And if he'd said to Areola, "Look, this is my normal style of play, but for 6 months, I want you to impress me. I want you to impress me with what your strengths are, whether it's something like your distribution, get better at your kicking, whatever it is, try and impress me. Not fit this style of play that you clearly don't suit and let the team suffer from your own ineptitude, because it gets the confidence of him down, it gets the confidence of the team down, and it directly leads to consequences on the pitch in the results." And for me, people can say, "Oh yeah, but Areola makes the mistake." Well, yeah, of course he does, because he's trying to play a certain style of play that Potter is telling him to play. And at the end of the day, it takes two to tango. So
yeah,
I just think it's the worst goal I've seen us concede for years. And I mean that on a level of, even at least Roberto was trying for some of his for some of the goals he
some of his own goals.
Yeah, for some of them he was at least trying, like the one where he attempts to catch it. He's attempting to catch it. Like, this is just crap, basic football. And terrible.
Yeah, I think because Graham Potter's wanting to play a certain way, as he said, Areola's trying that pass to suit or listen to the instructions of his coach. And as you say, under the previous coaches we've never seen Areola attempt those passes because A, we know he doesn't have the distribution to do it, and B, we just haven't been coached to play that way. So again, it comes down to game management. And I think Graham Potter, he's trying to encourage all players to buy into his way of playing, regardless of their levels or regardless of what period in their career they're able to do it. And with Areola, with a goalkeeper, they are so important they're probably one of the most important pieces to that puzzle for a manager like Graham Potter to build out from the back, especially in scenarios like this where you're trying to create overloads. You're effectively playing 12v11 or 11v10, sorry, on the outfield pitch with the goalkeeper coming, being part of that back line. And we've seen it with so many teams now, but you have to be considerate of the quality you have. And I think managers that aren't willing to adapt to those situations, they're going to get found out. But again, to caveat that, we've said before, Graham Potter coming in halfway through the season when the season's pretty much done. This is a pre-season. These sorts of games, you're almost viewing it as a pre-season for trying these sorts of things with these players. You know, if that happens in pre-season, you say, okay, at least Graham Potter's trying to play that way. We know Areola doesn't have the distribution to do it, but it's still a highly competitive Premier League game that West Ham fans have gone to the stadium to see. It's the last home game. You have to take moments like that into account. And I think that's what the biggest frustration for me was, seeing us concede that goal. Is not that the fact that we're trying to play a new way of football, because I completely understand that's what Graham Potter wants to do, but it's just understanding the context of the situation. And, you know, understanding as an individual that you can't always play the way your coach wants to, given that there's certain scenarios in a match that will arise. But that's probably my biggest frustration with that goal.
I think the other thing is, and I kind of mentioned this when we played Leicester, and you know exactly how Jamie Vardy's going to play, and yet we still played a high line and let him constantly beat our offside trap. You know that Forest are one of the fastest teams in the league. Now, albeit they normally hit on the counter. You know, I don't think that's unfair to say that generally they'll look to beat you on the counter if they can. And the thing that requires is pace, blistering pace across the pitch. Now, Chris Wood doesn't have a ton of pace, but he's a powerful runner, and he will create problems up top. So you're in a situation where you're trying to beat the press that they put on you from a goal kick, or from just a clearance at the back like this. You're trying to beat that press and counteract it. You're trying to do that against one of the best pressing teams in the league, with the most pace in the league and a ton of ability up top. What is the point of that for you to try and do that in the first few months that you've been here, when results aren't going well? You're not suddenly going to master it. It's not something that clicks overnight. That's not how football works. It's something that will be drilled and drilled and drilled. So if Areola's not good at that, and he's not been good at it for 10 years of his career, he isn't going to get good at it. Doesn't matter what kind of preseason that you do. When was the last time you saw a player in a West Ham shirt who you thought, oh wow, you know, 1 week was crap at something, and then the next week, or even a couple of months, you went, there is such a marked improvement there in the ability in that one single attribute. It doesn't work like that in football. Like, you can practice and practice and practice, and as a young player you will improve because that's how it works. But when you are at the end of your career, it's not really something that's going to happen overnight. And again, the opposite, you have to factor in the opposition you're playing. So while you're trying to draw in this counter press from the fastest, quickest team in the league, and know the consequences of doing that, especially when you're that close to your own goal, it's beyond me. Like, I'm not saying that
I think that's where game state comes into it. Like, we're in the opening 10 minutes of the game. Forest, we know, try to start fast, try to take the lead, and then they'll sit back, be compact, protect the lead, and hit you on the break. We've seen it so many times this season with Forest, and they've been so successful at doing that. And it's like we just took it for granted. We expected just to be able to play through this Forest team regardless of the situation. But again, it's a really frustrating one to concede, given the circumstance of the situation. But we did concede it. I thought our reaction was okay. It was pretty flat in the first half, to be honest, after that goal. Forest went in at halftime 1-0. Second half, it took 5-10 minutes for us to make the substitutions. I think Graham Potter made 4 substitutions in one go around the 60th minute mark, just before the second Forest goal. And that's one thing I also think he's had a little bit of criticism for, and I wanted to get your opinion on it, Sloth, is not giving Cresswell his own time to come off the pitch. So it was almost lost in the substitutions. And I could see that if you're at the stadium announcer after tried to give him another send-off after the four substitutions had been made. But again, is that just something Graham Potter, taking context into consideration of someone that's been here since 2014, probably deserves that moment to come off and have the proper appreciation from the fans and not get lost in the 4 subs? Or do you feel like it was warranted, it doesn't really matter, and the criticism's a little bit harsh from the West Ham fans?
No, I think it's fully justified. You pay your money to go and watch West Ham, and if someone has been a loyal servant to West Ham, or at least have been there for such a long period of time, you want to say goodbye to them. And it shouldn't be getting lost amongst the melee of making 4 substitutions. And for me, I think making 4 substitutions all at once kind of is a bit of an alarm bell to me, that you've got it so wrong from the start that you need to make these changes all at once.
It was such
You
a
can't
stark
just
change
wait.
as well, wasn't it, with the 4 players that came on?
And I think he reacted to the atmosphere in the stadium, where that goal we conceded completely sucked the atmosphere out of the stadium. It was a good place to be for the first 10 minutes, and then that goal completely, you could hear a pin drop. And I think it was because, as I mentioned, it was such a bad goal to concede. Everyone was just like, what the hell are we doing? All the negativity from the season just kind of sat with us until that halftime whistle blew. And yeah, for me, just to go back to that point about how you handle your substitutions, it's a lack of awareness for me. And this is someone who's supposed to be, an intelligent man, and by all accounts has quite a good relationship with players. So for me to not have that awareness that maybe actually what we'll do is we'll give Soufal, like, you can make 3 substitutions, and Soufal's at the end of that. So Soufal gets a huge round of applause when he goes off. Whatever. Then to Cresswell, 2 minutes later, it's not going to make a big difference. It's not going to make any difference. It's not like he was tired. So for me, I just don't understand what he's doing. And there's a big contrast between the 2 managers in that dugout. And Nuno is someone who I think really creates this togetherness. He creates sort of a siege mentality at whatever club he's at, where all the players are together and they've got a goal. They've got a goal to try and not just win games, but finish as high as they can. Graham Potter's goal, once he's come in, has been find a style of play that suits me, or just, well, I'm struggling to think of anything else. It's been to find a style of play or try and implement one. And I don't understand where this lack of awareness has come from. In just like, surely someone at the club goes, can you not give him his own substitution? Just like a time for him to come off by himself and get recognised by the fans.
Yeah, I think
I
also,
really don't understand.
I think also, aside from that Cresswell moment, like we've seen it now a few times with Graham Potter with his substitutions. In a game where we're losing, again, he'll make the substitutions like that, but 4 subs and in one go like that, it creates panic. It symbolizes that you're not really adjusting anything for the sake of adjusting it. And I'm not saying don't make substitutions, because they needed to be made. The way we were set up, it wasn't good enough. It was way too defensive against this Forest team that we know, they could see possession. They're going to hit you on the break. We saw it all in the preview when we went through it. But again, it's understanding those moments of when to make a substitution, when it's going to have the biggest impact, and getting that value from your player coming on the pitch. But, when you're making 4 subs in one go like that, again, look, there's the substitutions I didn't necessarily disagree with. But when you're making 4 in one go like that, it just screams panic to me. It just screams that, you're trying to make something happen, but you're not quite sure how to do it. So you're like, right, let me just chuck 4 players on and see what sticks. But I think the biggest,
I think one of the big problems for me, and it's, I don't know, other people might disagree with this, but I watched Lucas Paqueta come on, and it was great. He like when Lucas Paqueta was on, he picked up his card, and he should have been sent off. Now, if that was a competent referee, we would have seen a lot of different things. But I was sat there thinking, he's going to send Lucas Paqueta off. He deserves it. He deserves to have a second yellow card. It wasn't like me going, I think he might be on thin ice, or he deserved a second yellow card. And if you watch the game back, I'd be really interested to see anyone disagree with that. I think even in the tussle as well, he could easily have gotten a second yellow card. And granted, that's at the end of the game, but I don't understand why. If you're making 4 substitutions at once, you're not accounting for those kind of things. Lucas Paqueta is a hothead at times. he doesn't have a brain, and you know he's going to do silly things. Now, I'm not saying you have to plan for him to get sent off, but if you make those 4 substitutions and there's no head injury, then you're already limiting yourself to not, just making one change further down the line where, say, your striker gets tired and you want to do something different. You limit what you can do. While you're making 4 changes at once, it impacts you massively in the game going forward. And to do it at that point in the game as well, when you still have a decent period left, for me, I just don't really understand it.
Well, we made the subs in the 58th minute of the game. So, less than 15 minutes into the second half, those 4 subs came on. I think it was Soler, Petta, Alvarez, and one other. Can't remember who it was. But we made those subs and we tried to roll the dice. We changed to a back 4. We saw Alvarez go into the midfield. Soler and Paqueta came in as well. Fulcrook was the other one that came on up top. So we went more attacking. So fine. But as you say, you've then only got 1 substitution left. We made that, and after that, Kufal went down with cramp, and he was kind of almost forced to continue. He was never going to not finish that game. But you have to, as you say, you have to be careful with those sorts of things. I'm less concerned about that. I'm more concerned about the way the substitutions were managed in that moment and how they were portrayed to me watching as a fan. But I think the biggest frustration after those substitutions was we didn't really get to see the impact of them because Forest scored that second goal from a set piece, and we can very, very quickly go through it. Nothing crazy from Forest. Their big centre backs, Murillo and Milenkovic and Chris Wood as well. They're just waiting. We're holding our line. They then make the move in. The ball comes in from Elanga. It's whipped in with really good pace. It's a fantastic ball in from Elanga. But because the Forest players have gone back from an offside position into the line of the defenders, we're not really marking anyone. So they're allowed to get that run on, and Milenkovic can just flick it on. And yeah, it's another good header. But again, it's just really poor defensively from West Ham. We obviously saw the 15-minute VAR that then transpired as a result of that, which was equally as frustrating. But it did change the momentum. And I think we'll touch on the referee in a second before we conclude with Jared Bowen's goal. But that moment sort of switched the West Ham fans in that stadium. And we spoke about it at the beginning, Sloth. That's probably the best atmosphere we've seen at London Stadium, and probably not for the right reasons, because the ref created that atmosphere from how poor the officiating was. We've now since seen that there was issues with the VAR system and things like that, which delayed it. But even aside from the VAR stuff, that the referee's performance in general was shocking. It was really, really poor. And ever since that VAR decision went for Forest, I think he lost complete control of the game, and he just buckled to the atmosphere of the West Ham fans at the London Stadium. It was a very good atmosphere. It was a very, very good atmosphere from that point forwards, and we could see what West Ham were trying to push on and get the first, the second, third goal if we could, which I liked as the attitude from the players. And we didn't just give in; we did try and go for it. But how frustrating was it watching the ref kind of lost control of the game at that point, which is such a crucial moment in the game as well.
Well, I say this as someone who was a qualified ref myself. I would never officiate a game like that. And I'm not saying that, the bloody kids' football that I refereed is in any way the same. It's not. But the attitude, the arrogance, and the inconsistency that he showed was beyond belief. Absolutely beyond belief. And you could see it in how he was dealing with the captains of both teams. And not just that, actually, the time wasting of Nottingham Forest. Look, dark arts, part of football. Brentford do it, Forest do it, loads of teams do it. Heck, we do it sometimes. But as a referee, you have to be able to recognise, look, I'm gonna build a rod for my own back here, and I'm gonna book you. I'm gonna say this can't happen. If it happens again, you're off, and the consequences. They're number 7. Is it Williams?
Yeah, Nico Williams. Yeah,
he should have been off the pitch. There was a challenge on, I think it was Bowen. He gets 1 yellow card, and look, again, I don't want to see players sent off, but he put in a number of challenges that were that the referee had deemed worthy of a yellow card, and there was no consequence for. And it wasn't just like a couple of challenges, because I don't care about that kind of thing. I like it when the game gets full-blooded and the crowd get on the back of the referee at times, because that's what football is. It should be people flying into challenges and doing it with the right spirit. But the referee has to be strong and step up and take control of the game. And there was one moment in particular which I think summed up his entire problem. And it's that sort of FA, PGMOL, closed schoolboy headmaster sort of attitude where we're in control. It was him walking over to the touchline to book. I think it was Nuno, wasn't it?
It was I think it was one of the Forest coaching staff, and as you say, like it was 2-1 at this point. We were pushing for an equaliser, and he, as you say, he doesn't even walk. He ambles over and to book them, given it's like the 94th minute or 93rd minute of the game where we're chasing it. And yeah, I completely agree. It was like what are you doing?
It was the most arrogant thing I've seen on a football pitch from an English official. And I don't mean that's a dig at European officials, but this was the worst refereeing performance I've seen outside of that Frankfurt game. He was really awful. And he's the kind of referee that ruins a football game, completely ruins a football game. He makes it about him. And that summed it up for me. And what I think frustrated me was when I was leaving the ground, obviously you see Forest fans and they go, unlucky today and stuff like that. And I overheard someone on the tube back going, why did the referee play so much stoppage time? It's like, because he built that rod for his own back, where I think he gave 11 minutes, was it, extra time? And we went to 115. Yep. He created those problems. Because
again, he couldn't control that moment as well, where there was the big tussle, and then that added a minutes on. And even after that moment, where the tussle had happened right towards the end, he then walks over to, I think, Chris Wood, who's just keeping the ball on the other side of the pitch. He walks over, he takes about 30-40 seconds to get there. He's asking Chris Wood to pass him the ball. Chris Wood doesn't pass him the ball. He's just holding on to it. And then he eventually gets the ball from Chris Wood by grabbing it out of his hands. And then we see the action that happens, and then he just blows the full-time whistle anyway. So, as you mentioned, he just completely lost control, and he just didn't seem to care. He just didn't seem to care about what he was doing. He was walking around the pitch. He didn't have a control over the players. The decisions being made were really poor. Like even the linesman got some really bad decisions. There was a couple where they were caught clear corners, and he gave goal kicks for both teams. So it was just a really frustrating performance from that referee perspective, and it did ruin that game. But as you said, it did add to the atmosphere and the bite from the West Ham fans. We almost got the equaliser after Bowen's excellent goal. We had a couple of moments to grab one, but we just couldn't find it. But I do want to talk about Jared Bowen's goal, and there's kind of two things I want to touch on before we conclude this review show. But let's go through the goal, because it was, it probably would have won goal of the season had we not already voted for goal of the season. It was that good. First off, Kilman wins the battle with Chris Wood. We can see 85th minute here. We're pretty much going all out. We've left two centre-backs back, and we're pushing really high with our full-backs in a back four. Kilman wins his individual battle very well. Passes the ball to Petta, who I thought, actually, other than the stupid decisions he was making and should have been sent off, I actually thought he just makes such a big difference to that midfield, even when he's being stupid like this. It's not that it makes me want Petta to stay forever. It's that we need that type of midfielder to play the Graham Potter way and to play at the highest level, because we can't just have safe midfielders play this way of football. Because Petta gets the ball deep, immediately looks up, and look at Jared Bowen in frame 2 here, pretty much walking back. As soon as Petta gets the ball, Bowen's already making that move. And we've seen those two link up time and time again over the last 2 or 3 seasons. And that's the type of player Petta is. He will make mistakes. He will be stupid. He will probably have worse games than better games playing this way of football, especially at the moment in a West Ham shirt. But we don't have any other midfielder that will try this pass, that will even attempt this pass, let alone pull off and create havoc. He doesn't even pull off the pass to a higher level, but he was trying these things, and he was trying to force things to happen for West Ham. And again, he just hits it into an area that's dangerous. It creates a bit of panic in the Forest back line. They head it away, but it doesn't really go out to anyone. And then we see what we saw with Jared Bowen with, firstly, an outrageous touch to do this, to control this ball in this situation like this. And secondly, the first time volley finish off the back of that touch and just smashes it past Sales. And you're thinking, we've got 5 minutes left. We obviously got the 11 minutes added on. So we had like 16 minutes to get an equaliser. It didn't come, but it kind of paints two things for me. The first thing, before I get onto the second question for you, stuff around Jared Bowen, is Lucas Paqueta and that midfield. Even if we lose Lucas Paqueta, we need a midfielder that's going to do those sorts of things, that is going to attempt those sorts of passes. So is that probably one of the biggest challenges we're going to have in the summer transfer window, is not only replacing Lucas Paqueta, but building a midfield that is able to compete at the highest level, play how Graham Potter wants to play, but also have that directness to make things happen and create opportunities based on what we just saw there with Paqueta's pass.
I think, look, I just want to clarify something as well, that my criticism of his decision making in no way reflects what I think of how he performed when he came on, because outside of those silly challenges and things, he was excellent. Like he just took us to another level, and that's what that kind of player does. Now, do I think that counters having someone who is extremely quick, mobile, and physical in the middle of the park? Personally, for me, I think that it's a different type of threat. The fact that you have someone who can play this pass, and even when they get it wrong, creates that element of doubt, and I want to say it's a mistake from the Forest defender to go for that and try and clear it, and that might seem harsh to people, but the keeper's there, and the keeper could probably come out, or the Forest player could put it out for a corner, different style of header. But regardless of that, Paqueta forces them to make that decision with that ball in. And that's what makes the difference. I'm just kind of thinking, does it negate everything else in that circumstance? It's a player who can do like one or two great things at every 90 minutes, and they don't necessarily pay off. Might cost you possession that leads to their goal, or might cost you a number of issues in terms of red cards, things like that. It's great to have them, but if I'm building a football team, I want someone who I know is going to be able to carry the ball, able to physically beat the man in terms of hold them off, or just beat them with a burst of pace and play a pass. Like
depends on what type of midfielder you want, doesn't it?
Yeah, and exactly. And I think in a Potter system, then that for me is one of the best kind of play. You have to have two of those types of players anyway in that central midfield area. But I do just wonder that there's, say for example, we went out and got McAtee. McAtee will bring the work rate. He will bring the ability to play through a great ball every now and again. I don't think he's going to quite cost you in the same way with regards to possession and silly decision making. He may well do that, but
yeah,
I think that's the balance. And
I think for me, when I look at it, Sloth, it's because of the way our midfield has been. It's been such a poor midfield for West Ham this season. The personnel we've got in that midfield, it's not good enough, and it doesn't blend well enough. We haven't got enough unique characters in there. So a player like Lucas Paqueta, I've shared my frustrations with him in terms of his individual ability, and I know he's probably the only one in that midfield that will try passes like that. Ward-Prowse won't do it. Souček won't do it. Guido won't do it. Alvarez won't do it. They're not those types of players. Even Soler, to an extent, won't do it. He's very safe in possession. You need both. You need a balance. You need those defensive-minded players that are going to sweep things up and going to protect your back four, going to do the simple things and allow players like Lucas Paqueta the platform to make mistakes, to try things, because the recovery of the players around him is very good. We don't have that structure at all. So what we've seen this season is Paqueta trying these passes, and fans, rightly so, getting frustrated when he misplaces a pass and it gets turned over. And we don't have the setup defensively to rectify that mistake. That's the biggest issue for me. We don't have that recovery safety net. So when we saw this against Forest, when it's very late on in the game, Petta was able to kind of roam where he wanted to. Forest weren't that interested in getting forwards that much. They were trying to break in little moments, but by and large, they were happy to sit back and defend their 2-0 lead. They weren't offering too much of a threat at this point in the game. That's where Lucas Paqueta will thrive. And that's why we saw an excellent performance from Lucas Paqueta, barring the stupid decisions to probably should have got sent off, as you mentioned. But taking those risks in possession, it's not something comes naturally to a footballer. It's very rare to see. And it's why fans like Arsenal are very frustrated with someone like Martin Odegaard. Again, too safe for the type of player that he should be in that system. You've got, if you're playing with Partey and Rice, you need someone that's a bit more of a risk taker to playing in that midfield three. You just do to unlock defenses. So for me, we've got a massive issue with that midfield in the summer. I expect 3 or 4 of them. I mean, Soler's gone anyway because he's on loan. Guido's gone. Alvarez wouldn't surprise me at all if he was gone. Paqueta could potentially be gone. So really, of that midfield, the 2 most likely to stay are Souček and Ward-Prowse. Are they creative enough to or are they good enough to play as a 6? No. Are they good enough to play as an advanced 8? No. Again, Souček, you have to play with certain circumstances behind him to get the best out of him and maximize his impact. So that midfield area in the summer is going to be a massive, massive issue for West Ham. But what I think one area we are blessed with is Jarrod Bowen, and the fact that we're pretty comfortable that he should stay. I mean, if I was Jarrod Bowen, like, why would you stay? But he clearly wants to stay at the club. He's signed a long-term deal, captain of the club. Were you just to end this stuff? Were you surprised that he didn't win Hammer of the Year this season? Are you surprised that Aaron Wan-Bissaka won it? Because for me, I don't understand how Jarrod Bowen didn't win that, given the season that he's had and given the circumstances of this season. I just don't understand it.
I think Jarrod Bowen is head and shoulders above every other player in a West Ham shirt, and I mean that's just how I see it. And I don't think that's harsh to say. Aaron Wan-Bissaka has been very good. And I think maybe the fact that after such a frustrating summer, the one sort of real quality signing that we've made, and I don't want to be too hard on Guilherme, because Guilherme looked very good when he came on. And I think Somerville will fit that mould next season, but consistently across the course of the season, Aaron Wan-Bissaka has been head and shoulders above any of the new signings, and I include Max Kilman in that. Do I think he should have won Hammer of the Year? No. Jarrod Bowen was by far and away the most important player in a West Ham shirt. I think Jarrod Bowen, Souček, then Aaron Wan-Bissaka for me. And people might say that Aaron Wan-Bissaka deserves it more than Souček, but for me, I just think that when you factor in everything, all the question marks over his style of play, ability to fit into Potter's system, Souček deserves it more. And that's why I kind of can't quite understand why Bowen hasn't won it. I think maybe this is also something from, I sound like I'm bloody wearing a tinfoil hat, but, I think maybe this is something from within the club to try and get a bit of positivity to the wider squad as a whole, to just Jarrod Bowen, because he has saved us so many times. He has come to the rescue and just shown so much quality time and time again. And quite honestly, if you're a football fan and you don't rate Jarrod Bowen, I don't rate you as a football fan. Like, I just cannot understand how anyone can have watched him week in, week out. And look, he was pretty quiet against Forest. He was pretty quiet as a whole. But then to do that, when you're having a quiet game, it shows exactly the kind of footballer that he is. He will get you a goal, or he will do something that creates a chance, or even like we saw in the Frankfurt game, and I know it's heartbreaking to talk about, but the overhead kick. I don't think there are many West Ham players who you would look at and think, actually, they're going to score that, or they're going to be able to do that. And I am surprised that Bowen didn't win it, but kind of expect there to be a little bit more going on that kind of is trying to make people feel good about the side. Microsoft.
My bad. Yeah, no, I'm just frustrated that he didn't win it, because I think he deserved it. As you say, I think Wan-Bissaka has been by far the best signing we've made this season. The best performing signing. despite the inconsistencies at the start, I think the second half of the season he's been outstanding, but he's not been hammer of the year. Well, that's my opinion anyway. Your opinion may be different, but I just think he's been, because he's a new signing, he stood out more, and we've almost become, what Jared Bowen's doing is becoming normal. He's 1 goal or assist away from a 20 GA season again in such a poor West Ham team. Like, that is so difficult to do. And as you mentioned with Souček, like, if you go back and watch every single West Ham goal this season, it's either been pretty much Souček or Bowen that's been involved for the majority of them. So without those two, we'd be, I don't even know where we'd be. But yeah, it's frustrating that we lost to Forest, given it was our last home game. And, as we mentioned, frustrating Fabianski didn't start and get the send-off that he probably deserved. It was nice to see Cresswell and Kufau play. But again, just frustrating that we're not able to build on the momentum that we get, because, that win at Old Trafford, it was a huge booster. It was a huge lift for the club, that first win since February. And we had a platform to build on. Forest are a fantastic team. They deserve to be where they are this season, despite some of the recent form. They've been excellent, and they did a very good job on us on Sunday. But there were moments in that game where we should have took more control. We should have been better. But again, it's all learning curves, and it's going to be interesting to see how we go into the summer with Graham Potter, given the circumstances we've touched on in this review show. But yeah, let us know down below in the comments. Are you frustrated by the performance? Are you frustrated by anything else that happened in the game? Any positives to take going into our last game against Ipswich? Let us know down below in the comments. And yeah, if you enjoyed it.
I've also got an extra question, Frankie.
Yeah.
So I want to know if the rumours of Marinakis and Nuno falling out are true. Would West Ham fans take Nuno? Because for me, he's a more dynamic David Moyes in terms of how he plays his football. He can do the counter-attacking side of things, but I also just really like him as a bloke. I think he creates a really good atmosphere. I think he's very well spoken, much like David Moyes was. But I think he would be an upgrade on Graham Potter. And if Forest done fantastically this season, I think they'd be daft as a brush to sack him. But if they do, would you take him?
That's a great question. Let us know down below in the comments. I'm going to answer it now and say no. I wouldn't take him, given the circumstances of where we're trying to move to and everything that we don't like seeing in the West Ham fan base at the moment. I just don't think it would be the right fit for us. I think he's a fantastic manager and a great coach, but just don't think I would take him at West Ham. But let us know down below in the comments. Would you take Nuno instead of Graham Potter going into the next season? Yeah, let us know. Leave a like on the video if you enjoyed. Subscribe to the channel for more content going forwards. And stuff. Until the next one.
Come on, you irons.